Ever notice something? That some of the people who feel furthest from God are actually the ones who long for Him the most? They're just convinced they need to fix themselves first. But what if that idea is wrong? Hi guys, it's Dr. Grace, not a doctor of medicine, but a doctor of education. And most importantly, I am a servant of the Lord. Welcome to episode 9 of Reclaiming the Light Within. The title of this episode is Grace Before Change, the Prodigal Son, and it's taken from Luke chapter 15, and you can follow along with this story. But let us begin. Have you ever thought to yourself, maybe you thought this before, right? To yourself. Have you ever said to yourself, I'll come back when I fix my life? I'll pray again when I get myself together. I'll return when I'm better. But what if that idea is wrong? What if God never asked you to fix yourself first? What if grace finds you before change even begins? Well, today we're talking about one of the most powerful stories Jesus ever told. Because this story is not just about a son, it's about us, all of us. Bear with me for a second, just follow along. This space is for honest healing, for courageous reflection on identity. It's for anyone who loves God, but sometimes feel disconnected from who they were created to be. Here, we don't deny the shadows. What we do instead is walk through them so that we could reclaim the light that was always within. Let's begin. I wanted to say this to you. Grace before change is one of the most damaging spiritual belief people carry is this. They say, I need to become better before God will accept me. Many of us learned this without realizing it. Love was conditional. Approval was earned. Acceptance came after the performance. So we quietly project that same pattern onto God. We assume He is watching from a distance, waiting for improvement, for us to improve, waiting for progress from us, waiting for proof. But Scripture reveals something radically different. God does not move towards us after we change. He moves towards us before we do. Let me share the biblical story with you of the prodigal son. Again, taken from Luke chapter 15. Turn to Luke chapter 15. Jesus tells a story about a son who demands his inheritance early. In that culture back then, this was incredibly offensive. It was essentially saying, Father, I would rather have your money than your relationship. So what the son does, he leaves home and he wastes all the money. He wastes everything, his inheritance, every opportunity he wastes, every resource, every blessing. And eventually he ends up feeding pigs, hungry, exhausted, and ashamed. And in that moment, something shifts. He begins rehearsing an apology. He says, I will go back to my father. I will tell him I am not worthy. I will ask him to be a servant even. Notice something powerful here though. The son expects rejection because that is what shame always whispers to us. That you went too far. You ruined it. You cannot go back. So what does the son do? He starts walking home, probably very slowly with his head down, probably afraid, probably wondering if the door would ever even open. But then Jesus says something extraordinary. Whilst the boy was still far off, the father saw him, which means something important. The father was watching for him, not waiting to punish him, watching for him. And when the father saw him, he did not stand still. He ran. And in that culture, men of dignity did not run. Running required lifting their robes. It was considered undignified, but the father did not care about appearances. He cared about his son. So he ran towards him before the apology even happened, before the explanation, before the son could finish his speech. The father embraced him. Then he did something even more powerful. He restored him. A robe on his shoulders, a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet. Each one meant something. The robe restored his dignity. The ring restored his identity. The sandals restored belonging. And in other words, the father did not make him earn his way back. He restored the relationship first. This is an example of grace that moved before the change. Grace was offered to the son before the change. So how do I apply this to my life, to your life? How does this relate to us, to you? Now let's bring this into your lives. Some people watching this right now love God deeply, but feel distance, not because God stepped away, but because shame convinced you to step away. Maybe your thoughts sound like this: I should have known better. I should be further along by now. I made too many mistakes. So you quietly step back. You pray less. You show up less. You believe distance is what you deserve. But the story of the prodigal son tells us something different. It tells us that God is not standing with crossed arms. He is watching the road. He is waiting for the moment you turn your back. The moment you turn your back. And the moment you do, grace runs towards you. Wow. The powerful truth. You do not clean up yourself to be embraced. You are embraced. You are already embraced. That is what changes you. Grace does not excuse our mistakes, but grace restores us so that transformation can begin. Wow, what a powerful revelation. So I want to speak now about activating the SHINE, SHINE framework to this. And this SHINE framework I speak about in my workbook, upcoming workbook, is Time to Shine, which will be out in April. And it's a guide for us after the book number 1 that's out, Beyond the Shadows, Light Within, does this, the unraveling, where we name our hurt, name our setbacks, name our pain. It does the unraveling so we could get to the root cause of why we do things. Then the workbook is the guide to guide us so that we could finally shine, let our light shine, not for attention, but to let our true, authentic self finally be revealed. Let's walk through, and in this workbook, I speak about the framework, the SHINE framework. So let's apply it to this story. Yes, surrender. Releasing the belief that you must fix yourself before you come back. It's for heal. You have to ask yourself, honestly, where has shame been louder than truth in my life. Five for identity. You are not a project God is managing. You are a son, a daughter. And for nurture, what would self-compassion look like this week? Not perfection, but compassion. E for empower. Extend the same grace you are learning to receive to someone else. How powerful. So I have some questions for you. Ask yourself these questions this week. Am I waiting to become worthy, or am I willing to be received? Because sometimes the breakthrough we are waiting for begins with simply coming home. So the invitation, I want you to comment. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you needed to fix yourself before coming back to God? If this message resonates with you, write one word in the comments that speaks to that. And also write that you are ready to release shame, fear, performance, and pride. Your honesty might help someone else realize they're not alone. So I thank you for joining me today. And don't forget to return each at the same episode. We'll continue with episode 10 next, okay? Just remember, you are not chased down to be corrected. You are not pursued to be restored. You are seen. You are embraced. You are not too far. This is reclaiming the light within again. And this is where grace meets you before change begins. And I want you to repeat after me. I receive grace before I achieve grace. Let me repeat that. I receive grace before I achieve change. Let that settle. Because the truth is this: the light was never gone. It was simply waiting for you to turn towards it. And I will see you next time on Reclaiming the Light Within as we continue to reclaim our light. Thank you for being part of this community. If today's message spoke to you, share it with someone who may still be listening to yesterday. Subscribe so that we can continue growing together. And remember, the light was never gone. It was simply waiting for you to turn towards it. See you next time. And to God, I give all the glory. Until next time, peace.